Purvai Rai, many congratulations. Here we are. Confluence is about to be shown online with Gallery Espace. And let's begin our conversation with a question. In your family, your Raghu Rai and Gurmeet's daughter, and Avani is a photographer. Raghu, of course, is a photographer of great repute. Now, how is it that you decided to, do something other than photography?
So I don't think it was a conscious decision, but it just happened. I think, as especially when you're growing up and you go to a design school and your faculty and friends know who your parents are or who your father is, then there's automatically this sense of
maybe.
That they expect you to already know a medium, whether you're working with you're painting or you're photographing. So it'll always be like, if you do good work, it's like, Raghu Rai's daughter, and if you do bad work, then how come? So there's
but when
always.
You say design school, you're talking about Shrishti, where you studied.
Yeah. The reason why I picked Shrishti was, out of all the universities I got in India, was because in the interview they didn't ask me about my parents, though it was written in the form. That was the only school who did not bring them up.
It didn't matter.
Yeah. So when I went there, the amazing thing was that because we could kind of jump from I went as a graphic student, from graphic to film to textile to product. What that kind of allowed me to do was explore mediums that in school, pre-college, you don't even think about. I never thought that, I would love sitting in the weaving loom and weaving for 10 hours straight. But I enjoyed that, and I never saw myself taking textile as my, core of existence.
Which is what happened.
It happened.
And Purvai, what is very interesting is that also today you have an experience with many different mediums. When it comes to your work, there is that tactile, that kind of feeling of of something that you can touch.
Yeah.
And so just tell me then that when it comes to the present body of work, what exactly, if is there a storyline, is there a narrative? How did you begin to work on the present series of work, which I have to again congratulate you on? They are absolutely fabulous.
So I think for me, every series, my medium is actually chosen based on the properties of the material itself. I don't really go with, that I can work, I'm good with jute or I'm good with paper. I just pick something that even as a material makes sense. So if you look at these works, I've actually had to layer rice paper on a regular thick paper, because rice paper is so fragile, and the times we're looking at, everyone is literally just trying to live. That's all everyone is trying. If you look at the use of acrylic, right? Acrylic is water resistant. It has a property of long lasting. But then if you look at graphite, if you touch it, a part of it comes in your hand. So every material has its own property.
Its own properties. But when it comes to this present body of work and these different works, what is fascinating visually is the fact that for the viewer, for the person who's looking, they appear to be so different, so diverse, and the plurality is very, very interesting, because you've stuck to the same palette pretty much. It's black and white.
Yes.
Despite that, each work is so different. There, in that particular work, there is a quality of this paper almost being burnt. Now, I know what your concerns are, because you and I have had conversations, and I want you to talk about that at length later. But there is that quality of damage, of something being destroyed. Yeah. And in a way that is very, very soft and gentle. From there you come to a work like this, which is stronger. And here again you have this checkered center, and these strips of little paper, which is as if there are these feathers floating.
Yeah.
And each work, is there a series that you were looking at one by one? Is there a storyline that you were trying to follow? Did the works follow one after the other? Tell me a little about your process.
For me, I always work in series. I think the fact that I've studied information design, like, you know, in design you're used to like doing iterations and then figuring out what your final composition is. And I think that practice has kind of stayed with me even though I don't practice design anymore. So also I think what happens with me is that I have like, when I start working, I have this image in my head or like something I know I want to create, but that image and what finally comes on paper is not the same. So to be able to meet what I'm visualizing, I make multiple compositions.
Right.
And though sad but amazing that I can actually never create what I'm imagining, because, and the reason why I say it's great is because what you're imagining is actually something you've seen before. That's why it's there in your head. And the fact that I can't recreate it means that I'm not making what I've seen or like consciously making something that I've seen. So that kind of is how I end up making a series. And so what happens is now I have this idea and I'm making multiple compositions to get that. And so out of maybe I'll make 5, 6, and out of those maybe one will be the one which I'll be like, okay, I'm excited, I need to complete it. So I complete that, and then something like, maybe like this time what happened was I was shading and I was using a tissue paper to kind of get this very smudgy look. And because the rice paper is so thin and I was putting so much pressure to get the tone right, that I tore the page. I was like, oh my god, like my paper's torn. And for me, like, I'm an artist who makes sure every line is straight. If I'm coloring in the box, it's colored in the box.
So when you're saying that you make sure that the lines are straight, Purvai, do you use a scale or is it something that you do freehand?
No, scale.
Always,
So
huh?
yeah, so these are, you know, like the fact that I'm actually by education a designer, these
Right.
are, I mean, call it a good thing or a bad thing, these are things that have kind of stayed on as a designer.
So
but
you're talking about precision here. You're talking
Yes.
about the fact that the lines have to be just so, they have
Yes.
to be straight, and therefore, so that there's no mistake made,
yeah.
scales.
Yeah, and even if you look at like my shading here,
Yeah.
like, let me just lift this.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the shading,
Yes.
I'm very conscious about the fact that it's going dark to light. There's no patchiness. Now
Yes.
these are all, I think this is also something that I have to overcome. Like I don't have to always have it perfect, like it's okay. And I think by default the universe has been nice to me that it'll tear the paper for me, you know. So the first one was a mistake, and then I was like, okay, no, like, you know, like if you see, even in my studio, I have like all the works that don't like come out the way I've hoped they would. I roll them up and I keep them because I know in the future I can do something with it.
Purva, we were talking about the series, and you were telling us that where this series is concerned, you have like groupings made, right?
Yeah.
Anatomize is one group.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? You know, what kind of work is that?
Yeah. So again, like for me, when I work in series, it's not intentionally that I kind of started with like these 5 concepts. It's just that I was kind of thinking about what I was. So I'm an anxious person by nature, and I think with the coming in of COVID and being scared of bringing it home, I've been even more anxious. And then the second wave, getting COVID myself, having my family have COVID, you know, it was, and then the news.
Yes.
And we were fortunate enough that we recovered from COVID before medicines and, you know, oxygen and all that was running out. So I think, and like I always say this, that since I'm like, you know, I work with abstraction, what it allows me to do is, even though I'm talking about this one particular subject, it's born out of my experience in the last 14 months. What it allows me to do is not have work that represents a particular thing that's going on. It's open to interpretation in terms of, what is like it could apply anywhere. So like stage 1, which actually means dissecting or like trying to go deeper into something, and my interpretation of that would be that if you look at any subject matter, whether it's you look at COVID, or you look at politics, or you look at dissension or farmers protest, there's so much that's been happening. But first step of responding to what is happening around you is to understand, and to understand is to go deeper. It's to be more conscious of,
and to analyze, to be more analytical.
Yeah,
but
and
somewhere there is that human being within you. There is that you're fragile, right?
Yeah.
When you're responding to all these things that are happening around you, it affects you.
Yeah.
So there is this combination of responding, and also that fragility that is there within, which is very interesting. And then you have the next lot of works that you call threshold, which is going over the threshold.
Yeah, that's actually where I kind of come to what happens to you, because I think we now live in a time where whether you want to know what is happening around you or not is not your choice. If you're using Instagram, you're on Facebook, you don't even have to be someone who is politically inclined or socially inclined. It's just fed to you, right? And
but
I
you
feel
are politically inclined.
I am.
You are
I am.
socially inclined, and that is also it's an important part of your work.
And that's what I was coming to. Like when you see like the work in that section, you actually see that there is a structure, but there is something pushing it,
Yes.
Now I don't want to kind of visually describe it. It's important, like when someone sees it, they experience it. But for me, the step 2 is the impact understanding what is happening around you has on you. It doesn't necessarily have to be COVID. It could be something happening in your own house. It could be something happening globally,
in your city or around you.
So I think step 2 is basically how much of this can you as a person physically, emotionally and spiritually actually absorb till you reach a point where you break. Because like for me, being someone who is anxious, like it's been tough, but
it's been tough, and that's what I was going to tell you, that looking at your work, the work has memory. You're a very young person, you're barely 26 years old, but there is this quality of memory in the works, which is what speaks to me. First of all, it's like much has happened. Even during the making of the work, so much has happened, which is why there is this layering, there is this, you're talking about reclamation, which is the next series. The fact that these things are happening, even for a person who's young, there's been much going around in the universe, even in our own country perhaps, and you're left with memories too.
Yes, I mean, memory is a huge part of I mean, it's not something I've kind of consciously tried to incorporate in my work. Like when I talk about the 3rd stage, for me, again, now I'm consciously not taking the names because it's about the feeling, and like these are also little complex words. So I want, when like a viewer kind of experiences my work, I want them to feel
to be open about the
so the 3rd stage is basically reclaiming for me. So in the 2nd stage, a part of you is lost because you're pushed to a certain extent. So stage 3 is reclaiming what is lost, whether your emotional stability, or in terms of CAA protests, it was, I mean, a lot of the conversation was about religion, but for me it was about people saying, no, India is mine. you know.
Now coming to that bit and a religious congregation, there was one work that you showed me and it was very beautiful because you were talking about people there, the gatherings and symbolized in a very abstract way. That just tell us a little bit about that work.
So for me, I would like to say I'm a spiritual person. For me, I don't look at spirituality as religion. Because I could go to a mandir, a gurdwara, a mosque and go with the same respect and same state of, you know, meditation.
Acceptance.
Yeah, and I think we've also been grown up in a way that, you know, we
course.
kind of, like for my birthday last year because lockdown and of course I didn't want to meet friends and all, I went to a close by dargah and gave blankets. And again, I chose the dargah, you know. It was just, for me, it wasn't about doing something good, but it was about being able to ask for forgiveness for what is happening, you know, because I mean, it's scary.
Yes.
It is very scary. And yeah, and I just, for me, that series where I'm making these, and this is also kind of born out of the floor plans that I kind of made.
Yes.
And those floor plans were a mix of your all different religious sites, and it was basically 2020 era place of worship not found, because it was a mixture of all these religious sites.
Yes.
And for me that was important because those are the spaces I would love to be in, you know. I would love that, like, all of us are together doing our own thing, because sometimes you connect with somebody else more than people who are in your community, as you know, how people
it's how you
kind of,
So Purvai, quickly, I just wanted to ask you, before I came back to the question of coalesce and final disposition, is that, it must have been absolutely deliberate for you to go with the same kind of a size, or, you know, the way, how, was it deliberate, the fact that you did not want to go for a smaller format or a larger work, but just stick to some kind of a uniformity? Which we don't have in our society otherwise.
No, so like I said, like, you know, I was kind of, I was working series. So when I do series, I'm a bit, again, the designer in me, lines have to be straight, the material has to be the same, the size has to be the same.
So that perfectionist in you.
Yeah, so, I mean, it, again, like, I actually didn't think of this till now, but I think it's because, like, for example, if I'd done these four together, I would have used the same size. So, and then if one is a continuation of another, then again that size gets picked. But it wasn't a conscious, but subconsciously I was just, you know.
These were the factors that perhaps were going on in your mind.
Yeah,
and
now that I think of it.
Yeah. So, how do you see your work progressing from it? Obviously, there is progression. Obviously, there's lots going on in your mind.
Yeah.
This present body of work is a continuation of the work that has happened before, and perhaps it's going to lead to something more.
Yeah.
But is there something that you would like to tell us about things that have moved you, things that make you feel strongly? Would you like to touch upon it? Like we were just saying, that the congregation, the fact that the walls are porous, the fact that when you've created this kind of a border, let's call it border or walls, these walls can be broken, and people inside who think they are secure are perhaps not so secure.
So, you know, I, like, you know, when, like, last 2 months, so I truly feel like just because you have a certain way of thinking, being able to hear other people kind of really changes, I mean, enhances how you think. It just reinforces it, maybe in a different perspective. So there was this talk on some news channel, I don't remember, and Dr. Naresh Trehan was talking, and he said, I just remember this one line where he said, you know, so he spoke about all the medicine and what you should do and shouldn't do. And finally he said that, other than COVID, a lot of people are dealing with anxiety. So the best way to deal with your anxiety is to help someone else. And I was like, that's amazing, because like even though you're anxious, if somebody calls you and they are seeking help or they're reaching out to you because they need some support and you help them, a part of you does calm down, you know.
Yes.
And so I think this was one thing which kind of like recently happened. And then when I like think of like the last, since I've been practicing art full-time basis, there was this one kid on the street, like I was in the car, mom and dad were, like mom was driving and I was sitting at the back, and he was selling those gajras. And very small cute kid, and I love these kids on the road, so of course I wanted to give him some business, and but I didn't have change, so I know like I'm the kind of a person who buys something and if there's change I just dump it in my bag, you know. So when I have to look for it, I have to really search. So I was searching for the change and everything, and that kid barely could reach up to the door and peeping. And so I found the change, and it's red light, it's green light now, mama's driving slowly, and I finally found the change and I gave it to him, and he gave me whatever the few gajras he had to give me in exchange. And we went a little aage, and my window was still down, and I think for him also, he responded to the effort I made, that he threw few more saying, Didi, aap ye bhi le lo. You know, and for me, I feel like these little stories are where practices actually are born out of, because I mean, like doing art in India and seeing so many practices, I've realized because the external stimuli is so much, there's so much news, there's so much like craziness happening, that everyone's practice, like a lot of people, I wouldn't say everyone, a lot of practices become, we start talking about current affairs, what is happening, but internalizing sometimes doesn't happen. And I feel like these small things, like these small gestures, like that little kid didn't have to throw the, the gajras at me, but that stayed with me. And from there I went to, I was like, okay, I really want to work with kids. And then I went to Kashmir and I did a workshop with children there who've grown up seeing what's happening and hearing about it. And that was a different experience.
But tell me, at home, do you compare notes? Because all of you are creative in your own ways. And also, you have grown up looking at your father's photographs and his works. So a lot of things that have happened long before you were born are visually so close to you only because you see them in your father's photographs.
Yeah. No, so, I mean, so, in terms of practice, of course, we see what we do. Avni sends her work and says, oh, this or that. So we have these conversations, and with Papa, I'll walk into his room and I'll say, not bad, you've taken a good picture here. So it's more
But Papa came in today and he said, these are the two works that I want.
Yeah.
I'm keeping these works.
Yeah. So we have a very, it's not a very, it's very
fluid
easy and
easy.
Fun and everything. Yes. But of course, a lot of times, initially when I used to go to Papa and I'd show him a work and be like, is this complete? And he would be like, oh, ki idea se kaam mat kar, feeling se kar. And I could never understand that. I was like, what is this? Idea se mat kaam kar. If you can't imagine it, how do you create it? So finally, I think now we've reached a place where I finish it, then I go to him, I slyly try to slip it in, is it complete? Because now I no longer get an answer. But of course, if he likes something, he'll be like, it's really good. Otherwise, if he sees me repeating, he'll come and he'll open my studio door and he'll be like, factory chalu hai. So I get it, okay, then I'm repeating. So it's very
It's fluid. But tell me something, is there anyone else, any artist there, in the country, elsewhere, whose work inspires you, or that you feel that you would like to see more of that person's work? Is there any such person?
So, having not studied fine art, I have...
is that an advantage, you think?
I don't know. till now. But like what has happened is a lot of times I create work and some people have been like, oh, have you seen this one's work or that one's work? And I haven't. And so I go back and I look into it. And the good thing, I mean the bad thing is you should know who your contemporaries are or the kind of people doing at least your kind of work, if not, and working with your subjects, if not everyone, because there are too many artists to you know, remember and know and all that. But the good thing is that now when I look at artists, like when I looked at Zarina's work, when I did those floor plans, someone told me have a look at Zarina's work, and I saw it, and of course I was like, wow, this is amazing, and I could see myself in her practice. But when I started reading up about her work, I didn't start as wanting to know her, but wanting to know my practice through her work. That what do I do differently? So while she talks about home being the physical place that she didn't have, or there were like
moving homes, because she was moving to different cities, countries.
Yeah, and you know, but by the end of it, her and I talk about sense of belonging, and for me, I don't talk about belonging to a physical space, though our visual languages are similar. So I think not studying art has done that to me.
It has been an advantage because you have that freedom in your mind to do your own thing. Without
and study my way.
And do things your own way.
So I think that way it's been an advantage, but it's not nice when someone sees your work and says, oh, have you seen this one? And you're just like, oh no. But you know, because there's so much work out there, and I think you go to art fairs, and I'm sure I would have seen her work at the India Art Fair, but like I don't remember who the artist is because there's so much visual overload. So
good luck. Good luck. I look forward to this exhibition and to seeing your work down the years. Congratulations.